guys. Today is Monday of the Holy Week, so I'm going to read the Monday portion of the devotional. Let's first read Luke chapter 9, 51 through verse 56. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him, who went and entered the village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people did not receive him, because his face was set toward Jerusalem. And when his disciples James and John saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But he turned and rebuked them, and they went on to another village. In this passage, we learn how not to understand Palm Sunday. To set his face toward Jerusalem meant something very different for Jesus than it did for the disciples. You can see the visions of greatness that dance in their heads in verse 46. An argument arose among them as to which of them was the greatest. Jerusalem and glory was just around the corner. Oh, what it would mean when Jesus took the throne. But Jesus had another vision in his head. One wonders how he carried it all alone and for so long. Here's what Jerusalem meant for Jesus. I must go on my way today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet should perish away from Jerusalem. Jerusalem meant one thing for Jesus, certain death. He predicted in Luke chapter 18, verse 31 through 33. See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him. When Jesus set his face to go to Jerusalem, he set his face to die. Remember, when you think of Jesus' resolution to die, that he had a nature like ours. He shrunk back from pain like we do. He would have enjoyed marriage and children and grandchildren and a long life and esteem in the community. He had a mother and brothers and sisters. He had special plans in the mountains. To turn his back on all this and set his face toward vicious whipping and beating and spitting and mocking and crucifixion was not easy. It was hard. I think they were not easy. It was hard. We need to use our imagination to put ourselves back into his place and feel what he felt. I don't know any other way for us to begin to know how much he loved us. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friend. If you were to look at Jesus' death merely as a result of a betrayal's deceit and the Sanhedrin's envy and Pilate's spinelessness and the soldiers' nails and spear, it might seem very involuntary. And the benefit of salvation that comes to us who believe might be viewed as God's way of making a virtue out of necessity. But once you read Luke 9, verse 51, all such thoughts vanish. Jesus was not accidentally entangled in a web of injustice. The saving benefits of his death for sinners were not an afterthought. God planned it all out of infinite love to sinners like us, and he appointed a time. Jesus, who was the very embodiment of his Father's love for sinners, saw that the time had come and set his face to fulfill his mission, to die in Jerusalem for our sake. And that's it for today. I think I mean, I think it's very hard for us to lose the purposefulness of Christ's death because we know what actually took place and how it had been planned all along by God. It wasn't like, okay, plan A failed and now we go with plan B. It wasn't that thing, never like that. But I think I can kind of understand why it was written like this because I think, people who don't believe yet and haven't, seen the truth or accepted this truth, I think it's very easy for them to try to rationalize or like make it logical. And they might say, well, what if, like it was just injustice and God just made something good out of it, right? So I think it was just like an argument against that kind of statement that God doesn't do like a fix up, if you know what I mean. Like, he doesn't have to fix anything. Like, he purposes something and everything happens according to his will. And he only does what he pleases because he is God. He has the power to do everything and all things or nothing. He doesn't have to do anything. So I think thinking about that, and I think we can think about the situation we're in right now as we reflect on Christ's attitude about this. I had a conversation with my friend about the coronavirus, and my thoughts on that is, even though it's a global pandemic and it affects me directly, but also doesn't, right? I'm not suffering from the sickness. I'm just like suffering from its like a shock wave, if you can think of it that way. But like, I think there is a very personal message that God is trying to communicate with me through this time. And I believe that to be true for you guys as well. Like, you might be learning something different from I am learning, but I feel like that's what's so cool about God. Like, he's so big. He governs the universe. He created the entire universe. And he's so big, and he's so above us, yet somehow he can be intimate with us and he can be personal with us. So I think if we really, really pay attention and be in tune with his spirit, I think we can learn something very personal, and something that would help our personal relationship with Christ through this time as well. I don't know what that lesson is yet. I'm still learning, struggling, praying every single day. You guys probably have noticed, but this is not easy for me. And I don't assume that this is easy for anyone. And so part of it is like that camaraderie that like we are in this together, but at the same time, like the sorrow and the pain and the suffering each one of us has is also very real and valid, right? So I pray that you have that freedom to express what you're feeling with God, right? How Job was with God, that they will be praying to God and talking to God, even if it's a little complaining, even if it's something like, I don't understand God, like, why is my last year at this school like this? Or like, why is this my 10th grade year, 11th grade year like this? Like, this year was hard enough. Like, I think that's a very valid question to God, and God will honor that because you're still talking to him, right? And so I really encourage you to think about the purposefulness in this whole week, that how God didn't just, went with the flow and see how we failed and then came up with a new plan. I want you to think about what was the initial purpose in that, and how did God's love manifest in everything that Christ did. And I believe that God is still doing that. And so I think it would be a good thing to reflect on, ask questions if you need to, pray about and struggle through. And you don't have to get an answer today. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. And so, yeah, just like continue seeking that answer, continue seeking God in this time of distress, frustration, and uncertainty. My prayer goes out to you guys too, and I know you guys are praying for me, so thank you so much, because I know I can't do this alone, even though I'm by myself. It's just that it's different, right? The weight of the Spirit. So like, I feel really lifted up when many people are praying for me. So thank you so much for that. And I'll be praying for you guys, and I'll see you with the Tuesday devotional tomorrow.